morning. All right. So God is so just, and he always is providing for our needs. We are blessed beyond measure to have a God like him. So can we stand up and sing our first song and give all the glory to him? Ultimately, in our lives, God is the main one. He is in charge of us, and he is the one that provides for us always. So can we stand up again and sing our second song?
Let revolution start, let it begin with me. You're the king of my heart and you have set me free. I want to shout it out, I want the whole world to see your love. From the moment time began, you had a purpose, you had a plan. You hold my future in your hands and I believe it's true. You reached out and you rescued me. You gave me love for the world to see. In what I do and the words I speak, yeah, I belong to you.
All right, good morning again, you guys. How you doing now after that awesome worship set? Good. How many of you were here last week? Were there a lot of you here last week? Do you guys remember what the story was about? Does anybody remember Ruth and Boaz? Do you guys remember that? Yeah, where did Ruth and Boaz meet? Does anyone remember where they met? What was Ruth doing? You can shout it out. She was picking wheat. That's called gleaning, right? She was gleaning in the wheat fields, and that's where she met Boaz. And who did Boaz end up being? Does anybody remember the special name that they gave him? Covenant Redeemer. That's right. Nice job. That is a hard thing to remember. Good job, you guys. Covenant Redeemer. So Boaz stepped in and took the responsibility of Ruth and her family, which was Naomi at the time, and he took care of her, right? And who does that remind us of? Who steps in and takes care of us? Jesus. Yes, Jesus is our Redeemer, right? He cares for us and he provides for us all the things that we need. And that is an amazing thing. So today we're going to learn about a different story. And it talks more about our hearts, okay? So when something's going on in our heart, does everybody get to see that? Sometimes, because what we do kind of shows what we're thinking or feeling in our heart, right? But not everybody knows exactly what's going on in our heart, but who does? God knows all about what's in our hearts, right? So sometimes people look like they're doing good things because if we were just to look at them, we'd say, oh, that looks like a person who knows what they're doing, but their heart isn't in the right place. And sometimes we look at people and we think, oh, I'm not so sure about that person, but their heart is in the right place. So we're going to hear a story about how God sees our hearts. So enjoy.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Good. I'm so glad you guys are here. If you're not here and you're watching online, I'm very glad you guys are doing that. And today we're going to have a very exciting story. Now, who remembers the story of Ruth and Boaz? The story before that is in a certain time period in the Bible. Do you guys remember what this time period is called? Anybody? Any guess? That's right. It's the time of the judges. Good job back there. We're in the time of the judges, and actually our story today is going to be about the last judge. Because after this will come the period of the kings. Does anybody have an idea who the first king was? Very good. You guys in the back. Saul. You guys are smart. So before we get to Saul, today we're going to learn about somebody else, the last judge that led us to the era of kings. And so in order to tell his story, I got to first introduce you to a couple of people, okay? So first we're going to be introduced to a man named Elkanah and his wife Hannah, okay? So here we have Hannah and Elkanah, and they were a family, and they had been married for many years, but Hannah still did not have any children. And she really wanted to have children. And it says that every year, Hannah and Elkanah, they would travel to the temple with their family. And they would offer a sacrifice. And then she would pray. And Hannah would be sad. And she wouldn't want to eat anything.
Why are you so sad? All you do is weep, and you hardly eat. I love you more than 10 sons could.
And so year after year, Hannah and Elkanah would travel to the temple. And after the sacrifice, Hannah would be sad. And she was so distressed that she would cry uncontrollably.
Oh, Lord.
Hannah didn't give up praying for a child. She continued to pray and beg God for a child. And she even said,
Oh, Lord, take a good hard look at my pain. Please give me a son. I will give him back to you for all the days of his life.
So what do you think when she's praying and she asks God for a son, and she says, I will give him back to you for all the days of his life? What do you guys think that means? Anybody got an idea of what that means? Right over here, what do you think?
I think it means, I forget.
Okay, very good. That's okay. You got an idea? What does it mean? She's going to give him back to God for all his days.
She's gonna give him to the temple priests.
Oh, very good. Somebody knows the story well. Go ahead. You got something right here?
He'll give him to the temple, and the priest will take care of him.
I like it. So we know that she is promising God that she's going to give her son to the Lord for all of his days. Now, that would be a really tough thing to do. Can you imagine after all this prayer and sadness that she'd be willing to give her son to the work of God? But now Eli, who is nearby, he's the priest, okay? And he's in charge of the temple, and he sees her crying and praying silently. And she's so moved that her words are not coming out of her mouth, but her lips are moving. You guys ever pray where you talk, but your lips move, but you don't actually use your voice? This is what she's doing, and Eli sees her, and he could only see what he could see on the outside, which was her very upset. She's talking, but no words are coming out. She's very distraught. He doesn't know what's going on inside. He doesn't know why this is happening. So when he sees her, he makes a decision about what he thinks. And here's what he said.
You're drunk. How long do you plan to keep acting like this?
Oh no, sir, no, I am not drunk. I'm brokenhearted. I'm just pouring out my heart. God.
Oh, well then go in peace. And may the Lord give you what you've asked of him.
Thank you.
So after she said this, Hannah went on her way. And finally she ate heartily, and her face was radiant. Hannah and Elkanah went back to their home the next day, and God remembered her prayer. And in time, he gave them a baby. So Hannah and Elkanah had a baby, and she named him Samuel.
He will be called Samuel, for he was given to me by God himself.
Just like Samuel was a great gift, each one of us are a gift from God, made specifically by God and for God. So now we want to see what happens next. So sometimes after Samuel was born, Elkanah said,
Hannah, it's time for our yearly visit to worship the Lord.
I need to stay here and take care of Samuel. But when he is old enough to feed himself, I will bring him to the Lord, and that's where he'll grow up.
Yes, the Lord be praised. Let the Lord complete the work he has begun.
So that's exactly what she did. Hannah took good care of her baby until he was a little boy. Not long after that, it was time again to go and worship God. She brought the child to Eli the priest, and she said,
I asked the Lord for this child, and he gave me what I asked for.
I remember you.
Yes, and I want to give him to the Lord for all his days.
I will take good care of him.
So Elkanah and Hannah left Samuel at the temple so that they could work, or he could work for the Lord and help Eli the priest. I am sure it's really hard for Hannah to leave her son at the temple to serve the Lord. And it was hard for her to say goodbye, but each year Hannah would come back to the temple and give Samuel a new robe that she made for him. And she would continue to pray for Samuel. In fact, one of her prayers is recorded for us in the Bible. So what I want you guys to do is listen to this song and follow along with the words that she prayed.
exalt in the Lord, and my strength is exalted in God. I loudly denounce my enemies, for I am so glad you rescued me. There is no holy one like the Lord. There is no rock like our God. Boast no more so very proud, no arrogance come out of your mouth. The Lord is our God who knows, and by him our actions they are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but feeble ones strengthened anew. The well-fed hire themselves for bread, but those who are hungry are fat with spoil. The barren has borne 7 babes, but she who has many is forlorn. The Lord kills and the Lord brings to life, brings down to the grave, raises up. The Lord makes poor and he makes rich. He brings us low, also exalts. He raises the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap, to make them sit down with princes and to inherit an honorable seat. The pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he set the world. He watches o'er his holy ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in the dark. For not by might does one prevail, the Lord's adversary shall be shattered. The Most High will thunder in heaven, the Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the power of his anointed ones.
So Hannah left her son Samuel to live in the house of the Lord all the days of his life, and Eli helped take care of him. But he also had sons of his own. However, if you remember when Eli first saw Hannah and her despair, what did he think of her when he saw her? He thought she was drunk. She was acting really weird, and he didn't know what her heart was all about. Well, Eli had 2 sons, and they were priests. Now, what do you think? They're priests. Are they good guys or bad guys? Well, if they're priests, you might think right away that they were good, but they were not. In fact, we're going to read here in the Bible about these 2 sons and see what God tells us about them. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12. It says, "Now the sons of Eli were worthless men. They did not know the Lord. The custom of the priests with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant would come, and while the meat was boiling, take a 3-pronged fork in his hand, and he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did at Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Moreover, before the fat was burned, the priest's servant would come and say to the man who is sacrificing, 'Give meat for the priest to roast, for he will not accept boiled meat from you, but only raw. And if the man said to him, "Let him burn the fat first, then take as much as you wish," he would say, "No, you must give it now. And if not, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for the men treated the offering of the Lord with contempt. So in the Bible, we learned very briefly a while back about how there are rules for how you are supposed to sacrifice. And the sons of Eli were there to help the people make their sacrifice. But they were taking the best parts for themselves. They were taking the portion that should have been given to God and keeping it for themselves. So, do you think God was very happy about this? No. God was very angry about this. And the other thing that made God very angry was not only that Eli's sons were doing this, but that Eli knew about it. And he didn't fix it. He didn't make it better. He didn't try to change it at all. So God is going to do something here. God is going to have a message for Eli. So one night, Eli and Samuel are both in their rooms sleeping. And as they were sleeping, the Lord called Samuel.
Samuel, Samuel.
Samuel heard this and awoke and ran to Eli's room because he thought it was Eli that was calling for him.
Here I am. Heard you call for me.
I did not call you. Go back to bed.
So Samuel went back to bed, and after a short while, Samuel heard the Lord again.
Samuel, Samuel.
And so again, Samuel got up, ran to Eli's room.
Here I am. I heard you call for me.
I did not call you. Go back to bed.
So Samuel went back to bed. But then the Lord called Samuel a third time.
Samuel, Samuel.
So again, Samuel went to Eli's room, but this time when he got there, Eli said something different.
Here I am. I heard you call for me.
Samuel. All right. Go back and lie down. If you hear the voice again, say this. Lord, speak, Lord, for I am your servant and ready to listen.
Eli had realized that it wasn't that Eli was calling him, that it must have been God calling him. So he sent Samuel back to bed, and as he laid down in his place, again he heard God's voice.
Samuel, Samuel.
Speak, Lord. I am your servant and ready to listen.
Listen carefully. The time has come for me to bring judgment on Eli's family. He knew the evil his sons were doing, and he did nothing to stop them.
So God told Samuel that he was going to punish Eli's disobedient sons. They were not living their lives for God. Samuel was very sad about this message, but he knew that it was important to obey God. So the next morning,
My son,
Yes?
tell me, what did the Lord say? Tell me all of it.
so Samuel told Eli that God was going to punish his sons because Eli was not teaching them to obey God. Later on, it happened exactly as God said it would. So in wrapping up our story today, the most important thing I want you guys to remember from this part of Samuel's story is that the most important thing that God sees about us is where? Where does God see? Our hearts, right. So we see what's on the outside. We can see what you're doing, we can see what you say, but it's hard for us to see what's in people's heart. But God can see in your heart. In this story, we had two examples. One of Eli seeing Hannah when she was distraught and sad and wondering what was going on, and he originally thought she was doing something bad, that she did not have good in her heart. But it turns out that she was, and she was really just trying to connect with God and praying about having a son. Meanwhile, his own two sons, who were priests, on the outside probably looked really good, like they were good guys. But inside, they had not good hearts. And they were doing evil things and stealing from God and not doing right by people who are coming to the temple. But they probably looked like they were good guys on the outside. And so as we go about our days too, we can see people on the outside, but we don't know what's in their hearts. But God wants to know you from the heart, okay? So I want you guys to say this all with me so that we can help remember it, okay? God sees what's in our hearts, okay? I want you to remember that as you go forth today and for the rest of your days, that it's not so much about what you do and what's outside. It starts with what's in your heart. And if your heart is good, then what you do and say will start to change and be more like God. Okay? But that's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. So let's take a couple minutes and let's pray about that right now. Father God, we thank you for the story of Samuel. We thank you that he obeys you no matter what. And that no matter the tough times that he faced, he obeyed you. I thank you for Hannah and her heart and how she just trusted you and reached out to you and prayed for her son. And Lord, help us to learn a lesson from Eli and his sons about just because we look good on the outside, we need to be mindful of where our heart is. And Lord, I pray for all these kids, all the small group leaders, all of us in this room and in this church and in our community, that our hearts would long to obey you like Samuel, that our hearts would be drawn towards turning away from the things we know you don't like, the things that we see in our world that we know are wrong. Lord, just walk with us and give us wisdom and strength to do that. And we pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, sit tight just for a moment. We're going to wrap it up and probably sing it.
All right. Wrap up time. So, how long did Hannah pray? Did she pray once? I think I heard somebody say years, right? Years. She prayed to God for years what she wanted. Sometimes it's easy to give up, right? And pray once or twice and say, well, God didn't hear my prayers. But she did not give up. She kept praying. And did God answer her prayer? Yes, he did. How did he answer it? What did she get? She got a son. And what did she say she was going to do with her son? She was going to give him back to God, right? So she got to care for him for a few years, but then she gave her son to the work of the Lord and left him in the temple for somebody else to care for him, and so that he could serve the Lord and fulfill his life serving God, right? God sees our hearts, right? We just learned that, and we saw some great examples of how that works. And God also hears our prayers, right? Sometimes you guys may have something that you want to ask God for, but you don't know quite how to say it. And it's something more that you feel, right? God hears what's in your heart, even when you don't have words to say. So it's important to come to God and remember to ask him for those things, even when you don't really know what to say. To just say, God, here I am. Here's my heart. And I trust you with it, right? So we have a slide here I want to review with you guys. So let's look up here. It says, read it with me, God hears our prayers, and we get to serve him with our lives. So when we serve God with our lives, that means we try to be that light to the world, right? We try to behave in ways that would honor God. We try to have fruits of the Spirit, goodness, kindness, gentleness, peace. All those things are ways that we can serve God with our lives, and that's an important thing to do. Sometimes it's hard to remember to do that, and we don't do a very good job. We forget to pray, or we forget to behave in ways that honor God. But thankfully, we have a Redeemer, right? Who's our Redeemer? God, Jesus, right? He came to save us from the sin that we all have, right? So when we all give our hearts to Jesus and we follow him, he promises to give us what we need, right? So let's take out our red thread that you guys have. I've got mine here. Does everybody have their red thread ready? All right. So this red thread reminds us that throughout the Bible, God is telling a story, right? He's telling a story about salvation, about who he is and how we can know him and be more like him and what that means to our lives, right? So that's what this red thread is supposed to remind us of. Let's read the red thread verse together. Are you guys ready? All right, here we go. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9:6. Wonderful. Good job, you guys. I think we've got another song here that we're going to sing, so go ahead and stand up.
Yeah, we shine the light of God. And when we speak with the words of love. And when we dance, we make it a little wild. 'Cause we're the people of God, yeah, the people of God, yeah. Yeah, we shine the light of God. And when we speak with the words of love. And when we dance, we make it a little wild. 'Cause we're the people of God, yeah, the people of God. So now is the time for the people to rise. Lift up a shout, everybody cry out. Raise your voice, shout out a noise, and dance the dance of joy. We are the redeemed, we are the ones who are free, and we belong to Jesus. And we are now alive, and in this world we will shine, and we belong to Jesus. Yeah, we shine the light of God. And when we speak with the words of love. And when we dance, we make it a little wild. 'Cause we're the people of God, yeah, the people of God. And when we sing the angel songs, the ones they're singing around the throne. Yeah, we worship the King with everything that we are. 'Cause we're the people of God, yeah, the people of God. We are the redeemed, we are the ones who are free, and we belong to Jesus. And we are now alive, and in this world we will shine, and we belong to Jesus. We're going into all the world. We're carrying the light of Jesus. And we shine in the darkest place we shine. Yeah, we're going into all the world. We're carrying